In recent history, there hasn't ever been a city in a situation quite as peculiar and unique as Hong Kong's. While technically being a part of China, Hong Kong speaks a different dialect. It has freedom of speech, freedom of the press, it's a member of various international trade organizations, and the border between Hong Kong and China is still being patrolled, keeping China separate from China. But it's this duality and the maintenance of two systems within the same country that has allowed Hong Kong to continue to flourish. In 1984, when the leaders of China and Britain were negotiating a deal about the future of Hong Kong, they recognized that Hong Kong's current system, with its freedoms and the stability of its legislature, was conducive of economic growth and prosperity. So, China agreed to leave Hong Kong alone for 50 years until 2047, following the handover of Hong Kong back to China in 1997. However, the deal was negotiated at a time when Hong Kong represented a much more significant portion of China's GDP than it does today. Hong Kong used to be the channel for Chinese trade, as well as a significant contributor to the Chinese economy, but no more. Due to the unprecedented growth of China, as well as its reintegration into the global order, China's dependence on Hong Kong as an economic gateway is largely a thing of the past. That, many see, is the reason why China is slowly encroaching on the territory's autonomy. The fact of the matter is, China doesn't have to wait until 2047 anymore to fully bring Hong Kong back, because why wait when they can act now? Some also believe that China may be using Hong Kong to make a political point. They believe that Beijing wants to use Hong Kong as an example of the efficacy of Chinese communist rule of law, as opposed to that of chaotic Western liberal democracies. The extradition bill debacle was only the most recent event in a long list of threats to the city's autonomy and rule of law. In the decade after the handover, the Hong Kong government has disqualified elected lawmakers, outlawed a political party, jailed pro-democracy protest leaders, expelled journalists, and ignored the kidnapping of a bookseller from Hong Kong by Chinese agents. All of this has culminated in a sense of hopelessness, desperation, and anger, particularly among Hong Kong's youth, which is part of the reason for the massive protests the world saw starting in June. Along with an unwelcome and increasingly invasive and overbearing Chinese presence, Hong Kongers are also faced with an identity crisis. Solely based on ethnicity, the city is over 90% Chinese. However, this is not how most people identify. In a recent study, results found that the largest percentage of people identified solely as Hong Kongers, while only 1 in 10 residents said that they were Chinese in Hong Kong. The rest were conflicted or of mixed identity. Hong Kong is a part of China, and most residents are in fact ethnically Chinese, but Hong Kong is highly distinct from the rest of China, not just due to its current status as a special administrative region, but also because of its history as a crown colony. Hong Kong has its own cultural traditions, different values, and many Hong Kongers are proud of their rich Chinese values, heritage, and history. However, plenty disagree with the authoritarian regime co-opting these values. So, where does that bring us? What will happen in the future before 2047, in 2047, and beyond? Of course, nobody knows, and neither China nor the Hong Kong government is providing concrete answers. Will we remain free, or will sovereignty be transferred over to China? Will Hong Kong retain its status or simply become another Chinese city? Almost halfway through the 50-year term, the Chinese government has not made clear whether it will seek to continue the one country, two systems framework or realize the full restoration of Hong Kong. The basic law, Hong Kong's mini-constitution, has no expiry date or sunset clause, and it doesn't specify what will happen in 2047. As a Hong Konger myself, it is troubling to think about what could happen before and beyond 2047. I am part of the first generation of young people who were born after the handover in a Chinese Hong Kong, and we are a group that tends to lean more towards localism and pro-democracy ideals. But it must be accepted that Hong Kong is and always will be a part of China in some form, and it is deluded to think that independence is possible under the current circumstances, so a sort of dual identity that embraces both China and Hong Kong is a good middle ground. We are in the midst of a tumultuous period of Hong Kong's history. The recent extradition bill protests, the violence, and the unrest seems to spell trouble ahead and is a definite indicator that people aren't happy with our current government or with China. And despite that millions of Hong Kongers stand together against China's encroachment, the CCP will almost certainly get what it wants. But at the very least, it seems that history will remember what Hong Kong was and the fact that she did not go down without a fight. But I believe in the spirit of the Hong Kong people, and I trust that we will be able to maintain and develop a city that remains free and prosperous, despite the mounting issues as well as the volatile and tense political situation. Perhaps there is hope for a prosperous Hong Kong, or a Hong Kong that China miraculously leaves alone. But as always, only time will tell the fate of Hong Kong.